So it's on the Herald Sun this morning. Epidemiologists believe that the quarantine system in Melbourne just isn't up to scratch now that you've got these new strains. So what do you think here? Does it need to be moved into more regional areas? And if so, how do you even do that?
Well, this is an unfortunate development that the strains appear to be more airborne, more easily transmissible, and hotels, frankly, aren't set up to be a protection against an airborne transmission. They have air conditioning systems that are, either across the whole hotel, the whole floor, or a few rooms. So this is a problem, and at this point in time, it's where the federal government have to start actually working towards finding a solution.
Yeah.
When this first started, you won't quite remember, but the federal government reopened Christmas Island and put some returning Australians into Christmas Island. And that worked fine. And the government then closed it quickly and said, well, this is the state's responsibility. So Scott Morrison, will decide who comes to this country, has now, his mantra is the states will decide who comes to this country. He needs to accept, and I don't think he's critical of where we're at now with the hotel quarantine, but we have to have a different solution. If these variants are as transmissible, we have to have a different solution, a purpose set up. Whether it's the Toowoomba one he talked about before the meeting of premiers last week, whether or not it's a purpose-built one outside of Darwin. But clearly with 30,000 plus Australians who want to come home and Australia needs to bring them home, the federal government has to actually put a plan on the table. And that's a real problem that he wants to avoid all responsibility in this area.
Hey, let's move on to emissions because this is going to be one of the stories of the year. And I mean, you got the situation with the Nats now. They want the agriculture sector carved out of any 2050 plans. Is this, an example of how difficult this is going to be, and also a signal of how difficult it has been to get energy policy up until this point?
Well, look, Australia's been torn apart by climate policy for 10 plus, 15 years. And what we're seeing now is a continuation of that. But I am a little cynical about Barnaby Joyce and even Matt. Even though they've been consistent on this policy, they were cabinet ministers when their government signed the Paris Agreement. And now they spend their time campaigning against the Paris Agreement. You've got to say at some point, well, this is really not about emissions. This is really about Barnaby Joyce wanting to be the Deputy Prime Minister of this country and wanting to knock over Michael McCormack. So they are now taking a position which, frankly, was Labor's position over most of the last 10 years, keep agriculture out. So this is a convenient feint by Barnaby and Matt that's all about putting the pressure on Michael McCormack to try and undermine him inside the National Party and cause a spill. So I'm a little sus. I think Morrison, very clever, last week started the process of saying to the Liberal Party and the dinosaurs like Craig Kelly in the Liberal Party, we can do the 2050 by net zero by 2050. We can do it. And so he's beginning that long, slow march of dragging the Liberal Party more into the centre. This is clever politics by Morrison, and he will win.
Even New South Wales Energy Minister Matt Keane, he says, fine, carve agriculture out of it. We can still get there. I mean, that's an interesting point. So do you believe it can still be done without agriculture?
Look, absolutely. And Labor put forward policies around a whole range of heavy emitting industries, around the transport sector, around the farming sector. The Liberal Party are now adopting Labor's party policy from 10 years ago. And it's entirely convenient because the sort of doom, remember the electric vehicle debate, not 18 months, 2 years ago in the federal election. Oh my God, Labor was going to force you to have electric vehicles. And General Motors in America have announced by 2035 they won't be producing anything other than electric vehicles. This is absolutely where the world is going. And yet the Liberals are so cynical on climate policy that they are prepared to tell any lie about the impact on the Australian economy, except when they propose it. Then it's all fine.
What do you make of Angus Taylor's plan not to subsidise electric vehicles? That was announced last week.
Yeah, look, there's pros and cons here, but anything that increases the uptake of electric vehicles over a 10 or 15-year period is a good thing. And again, this is just a bit of flim-flam to try and pretend to the Liberal Party base that hate this issue, as opposed to the majority of the Australian public who want to see electric vehicles. This is another sleight of hand. Morrison will drag them to this position. Taylor can maintain his position all he wants. But I think that is not a sustainable position. They know that. So he'll be moving to do more for electric vehicles as we move towards the next election.
That's the only way to reduce the cost. I mean, one of the biggest problems that perhaps stops the uptake of electric vehicles is the cost. People can't afford it. In the US, people get $10,000, a rebate of $10,000, and that seems to have helped there. So, why can't it work here?
Absolutely. I mean, and that was, under the Trump era.
Yes.
Seriously, this is a political gamesmanship. Everyone knows we're going to get to 2050 net zero. It's just about the transition. The Liberals will look at an idea, if Labor propose it, it's bad. It will wreck the economy. But 5 years later, they'll be adopting it.
Yeah. And just quickly on tourism, you suspect something's coming.
Oh, they have to.
Feeling you know that something's coming.
No, they have to. The tourism sector, international tourism, is absolutely decimated. They have got to recognise that particularly the international tourism means that the tourism sector, particularly given, say, regional Queensland, is being hammered. They will find some way to extend, they might badge it and call it something else, but they will put a package in place to support the tourism sector because they have to. This is not the tourism sector's fault. This isn't we've run a bad ad campaign. This is, international conditions have smashed the tourism sector. Hundreds of thousands of Australians depend on it for their livelihood. Morrison would be crazy not to, and he's not crazy. He's a very good politician.
Anthony Albanese up there at the moment. Dan Tehan's up there at the moment. They're all talking to the locals in good old Cairns. Good morning to our lovely viewers in Cairns too. Stephen Conroy, good to chat. We'll talk to you again soon.